sounds dry.
If you're serious about best ball, you know that managing your exposures is crucial. That's why I'm excited to walk you through the Best Ball Exposures Tracker. I'm Michael Dubner, and I'm a high-volume best ball drafter. This is the tool I personally use and have perfected over the years to be a successful best ball player. This tracker gives you a comprehensive breakdown of your best ball portfolio, from player exposures to roster constructions, stacks, and Week 17 correlation, and enhanced roster analysis, all in one place. It's the only tracker out there that provides an in-depth review of your results after the season. No more guessing if your draft strategy paid off. You'll have all of the data to back it up. Let's start by looking at our rosters. The Rosters tab is where all of your teams will be displayed, as you can see here. They have a much more detailed look than what the fantasy sites provide. We get ADP value, correlation, stacks, and roster constructions. Now let's import those rosters. This tracker supports all fantasy platforms, but we'll start with Underdog. Head over to Underdog and email yourself your exposure CSV, which I will pull up over here. Then copy the entire CSV. Head over to your Underdog Exposures CSV tab. And then paste the CSV into this tab. Then go over to the Roster Import tab. And you will see all of your rosters automatically populate over here. And then also your the number of new rosters that you need to import, it will list that number here. Now copy the new rosters from cell Z1 through AD until you get to your last roster. I had 7 rosters I need to import, so I copy those. Then I head back over to the Rosters tab, and then my next available empty roster, I paste values only. And it's very important that you paste values only and not do the normal paste. And that's it. Your exposures will all update from here. And you'll also notice if you go back over to the Roster Import tab that it says the number of new rosters you need to import is now at 0. It's important to check this number because the roster importer is able to transfer over 150 rosters at a time. So just repeat this process until all of your new rosters are imported and the number of new rosters to import is set to 0. Now for other platforms like DraftKings, Drafters, and FFPC that don't offer exposure CSV exports like Underdog, we'll have to manually enter those rosters. If in the future we're able to create an import tool like we have for Underdog, that will also be located in the Rosters tab to the right of the Underdog tool, and I'll send an email announcement to the email list. So be sure to sign up for the email list on the Welcome tab. But for now, we'll learn how to manually import these rosters. To import these teams, go to the Rosters tab and go to your next available roster and pull up your draft board for that fantasy website on the side. And we start by filling out the roster metadata. So we'll act like we're filling out a drafters team. To find the tournament ID, if you can't find it in the draft board URL, go to the Rosters tab, and in the tournament list here, if you unhide these cells, one of these columns is the tournament ID. So you just want to copy that. And I'll go through the Rosters tab later in this video, but I'm just going to go ahead and re-hide these cells for now, but you can keep them unhidden if you want. Go back to your Rosters tab and paste in that tournament ID. The draft ID here is crucial. It's what really powers the entire tracker. You'll usually find it in the draft board URL, looking like a random string of numbers and letters. And if you can't find it, you can always enter a unique string of numbers and letters. The key is just that each roster needs its own unique ID, not used by any other team. Since this is a test roster, I'm going to put in a random draft ID. But also, if you have any questions about where to find the metadata, if you click on the metadata cell, I usually have a note attached to it where I give a hint about where to find each metadata. And also go ahead and click on the note attached to the metadata cell, and I give a tip about a workflow about how to track these rosters. But we'll go ahead and continue filling out the rest of our metadata. I like to personally track the draft URL in case if I want to reference the draft board at a later date. You don't necessarily have to, but I think it's a good idea. Then go ahead and start filling out your players. If it's just a 18 round draft, simply leave rounds 19 and 20 blank. Also, for the postseason metadata, you can leave that blank for now. We fill that out after the season is over. There's an area here where you can enter co-managers and notes as well. But that's it. That's really everything. The rest of the tracker will update from here. Now that we've imported our rosters, let's take a look at our exposures tab. This is where we get to dive into our portfolio management. You'll find an overview of your rosters, player exposures, roster constructions, stacks and correlation, ADP value, and team level exposures. There are filters that let you focus on specific types of rosters. Just leave the filter cell blank to include all options in a filter. And some of these filters are multi-select. For example, we can filter by all teams with picks 1 or pick 2. Most of this is pretty straightforward. In the player exposure section, you can sort your players based on different options here at the top. For example, we're currently sorting by Underdog ADP in ascending order, and you can click and uncheck different positions to include in this player exposures tab. The ADP, CLV, and ADP metrics differ in that closing line value is simply your draft pick minus ADP, while the ADP value is similar to CLV, but also adjusts for the draft capital spent. There's also a flag column that marks when you are especially over or underexposed to a player. You can find the flag criteria by clicking on the note attached to the flag cell. In the roster construction tracker, you'll find a variety of roster constructions that I like to track my exposures to. In the description below, I'll link to an article I wrote at RotoViz where I break down the best ball roster constructions for tournaments. In the stack tracker, you'll find how often you stack up your quarterbacks, and we find everyone's favorite, the Week 17 game stack tracker. Be sure to watch Peter Overzet's Week 17 is All That Matters video, which I will link here. Next, we find out who the real value hounds are. And with all this data, I can really get lost into diving into my exposures for hours. Next is our roster finder, which helps you to quickly find rosters based on specific criteria. Think of this as a way to filter your rosters tab. For example, I can find all the rosters drafted in a certain tournament with a certain draft pick, and these are multi-select like the other filter options, and you can do it where you draft Saquon Barkley on an elite tight end team, or you can use it to look at all of your teams that advance to the finals. Once the season is finished, the results tracker becomes incredibly powerful, breaking down your results by every conceivable metric. If you're a premium subscriber, follow the instructions here to help import your Underdog results. For other platforms, go back to the Rosters tab and manually track the results for your team in the metadata. Like I said, we can see our advance rates, finish positions, net profit, and break this out by everything imaginable. We show your results by fantasy platform, individual leagues, which I will come back to, by a bunch of other roster elements, such as breaking it out by advance rates, by draft month, pick number, roster constructions, and of course our player-specific advance rates and net profit. And this is all customizable with the filters. Let's go back to the league results section, which is an extremely fun table. The advance rates here are calculated specific to each tournament, meaning that when tournaments have different advance rate structures, this will be accounted for in your advance rate over expectation. For example, Best Ball Mania has a 16.7% advance rate to week 15, but the big board has a 25% advance rate expectation. So a 25% advance rate in Best Ball Mania is great, but 25% advance rate in the big board is perfectly average. and these advance rates over expectation at the tournament level are able to account for those differences in the advance rate structures. That's not where where it ends with the tournament tracker. Like I briefly mentioned before, by default I have columns V through Z hidden. If you unhide those columns, you'll find different ways to categorize these tournaments. This feature isn't just for postseason analysis, but I use this during the draft season as a way to track my tournament fill rates and part of my bankroll management system. You can keep these hidden or unhidden throughout the season. It's kind of up to your preference. This tracker is how I manage hundreds, even thousands of best ball drafts. As the saying goes, what gets measured gets managed. The link to the tracker is in the description below. The free version allows you to import up to 100 rosters, giving low volume drafters a completely free tool and giving high volume drafters a solid free look at all of the tracker's capabilities. And in the welcome page, here is how you sign up for the premium tracker with unlimited rosters. That wraps up our tutorial on the Best Ball Exposures tracker. I've added relevant links in the description below. I hope this tracker helps optimize your portfolio and bankroll management. Thanks for watching and good luck drafting.